I spent the last 2 years studying the biggest telehealth brands in the world, so you don't have to. And what I found is that these brands may look completely different on the surface, but every one of them follows the exact same 3-part playbook. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So as someone who has worked with and audited the entire email infrastructure of more than 50 telehealth brands, I'm going to be walking you through the 3 patterns so you can implement them into your own business. Let's get into it. So pattern number 1 is to maximize your lifetime value, because the biggest telehealth brands do not treat first order as the finish line. Not at all, it's the exact opposite. They design the offer and the patient journey and everything around ongoing treatment and subscription, because that's what the whole telehealth space and winning in the telehealth space is all about. It's about subscription, adherence and refills, and those are what turn an expensive first conversion into strong patient LTV. And I'm gonna talk about a couple of strategies and tactics that you should follow and play by if you want to, acknowledge and start utilizing and leveraging this pattern that the winners are using. So getting into your upfront framing, first of all, locking patients into longer term plans is one of the easiest ways to increase your lifetime value. It also gets you more cash upfront, which you can immediately reinvest into ads, improving cash flow. So here's an example from HIMSS. They first of all offer 3 different plans and give big incentives for longer term plans. So you can see their 6-month plan, 16-week plan, 8-week plan, and the longer plan they take, the bigger savings there are, and that's clearly highlighted. So they're trying to get people to feel like, obviously that's true, you're getting cheaper price on a monthly basis if you lock in for a longer term plan, and this way you're also already pushing people to stay on the treatment for longer, and you're kind of getting the margins and getting them to pay back straight away on the front end. They also offer Klarna plans, and patients on payment plans obviously tend to retain longer anyways, and patients who just pick the cheapest shortest term. Now the early retention window is the second thing. 80% of churn happens in the first 30 days, so that's where 80% of your effort should go as well. And that's where the biggest brands do these 3 things. So I'm gonna explain the 3 key things here on a high level. First of all, post-purchase onboarding flow. It's the longest and most important flow for retention, and it sometimes runs for months and months with regular automated patient support check-ins and value-driven emails and communication that proactively help patients and keep them satisfied. The trigger obviously is when the first order has been completed, and then the flow itself can contain a lot of different things. Super important in these type of flows is that you set the expectations clearly, because people might have too high expectations of, for GLP-1s, for example. So even if they would be getting totally normal results, if they have over promises from what they read online, they might just be on a totally normal path but churn because they felt like they should have been achieving more. So expectation setting is super important. Side effect management, handling the nausea, offering them anti-nausea tabs for GLP-1 patients or something like this. Whatever you can do to make them feel better, manage the side effects better, and stay on the treatment for longer, because they're getting better treatment, better results, feeling better in general, and it becomes sustainable. That's what you want to do. You want to include tips, guides, FAQs, patient success stories, and appointment reminders, etc. into the flow. And then obviously you want to educate patients on how to get the best results from the treatment. So here's an example email. You can offer them to download weight tracking charts to, track the weight loss. You can offer them a lot of tips. You can offer them recipes, GLP-1 friendly recipes if you're talking to GLP-1 patients, etc. So there's a lot of stuff like this you can do. Secondly, cross-sells. So cross-sells are something where you're basically expanding people from one specific treatment category into other complementary treatments that help your existing patients get more out of the treatment they're already on. And it's very rare for a patient to deal with only one pain point. So most likely there's always going to be pathways that you can cross-sell to, as long as your website and your brand offers these different treatments. So there's general wellness, NAD, different types of peptides, hormone replacement therapy, there's hair loss treatments, there's ED treatments and stuff like this for GLP-1 patients or for patients on any of these treatments. You can see what a specific persona is, what their health goals are, what would they need, for example, and then you can cross-sell them to relevant treatments. Let's say for GLP-1 patient, you might cross-sell them to NAD for increased energy during the fatigue that the GLP-1 treatment might be causing, etc. So that's one example. Then you want to use email as a tool to, handle and improve the retention. So it's one of the easiest ways to contact your current patient base, and obviously retargeting emails or retargeting ads also work well. But the thing about email when it comes to cross-selling and upselling is that you already have these people in your list, and it doesn't really cost anything extra to send emails to them and to retarget them. So that's the most cost-efficient way to get people to actually expand to other treatment categories. Then there is something that I call benefits here, and I'm referring to an example from HIMSS, for example. They offer the HIMSS benefits program these days, and this is kind of like a subscription program, like a loyalty program, where you simply make your own service stickier by adding these extra benefits that are are not the same as the core treatment, but they are part of the treatment when you are on the plan. So you get those as extra because of being on the plan. So for example, if a patient is going to churn, they don't just lose the treatment itself, but they lose access to all of the things that you have had as part of your benefits program or your loyalty program, and that have already become instrumental and key parts of their daily lives, helping them live better, live healthier, and feel better. So here's an example from the HIMSS benefits program. You get different type of affiliate deals. You get free meals from HelloFresh. You get 15% off MyFitnessPal Premium. You get 3 months free premium strength training. You get a lot of these different benefits. You get some blood panels, cancer screening, etc. If you have all of that as part of the HIMSS treatment, for example, by being a HIMSS customer on the GLP-1 plan, it's quite sticky compared to just a generic brand that is only selling the GLP-1 molecule and the treatment. Because if you don't have anything else but the treatment, you don't have any support, you don't have any of these benefits, why would they stick to you if they find a cheaper option? They probably wouldn't. They would just go to the other side and change the provider. But if they have all of this together with the treatment itself, and they feel like you're the only one that understands them, you have a community, you have these extra benefits, and you're providing great support, then they're much more likely to stay with you for long term. Now, pattern 2, which is probably the biggest difference between winning and losing brands, is that losing brands run a GLP-1 ad, for example, then they send traffic to the homepage, and then they send them a general email. But there's no coherency or consistency from one step of the funnel to another. And this destroys the conversion rate, because congruence is the most important factor in making sure patients don't get confused, because confused patients don't convert. So what do the biggest players do? Again, with HIMSS example here, if they have a hair loss ad, they are pushing people to hair loss specific quiz, to hair loss specific email, and then they're keeping the whole funnel congruent. So people who are already coming in from hair loss, they are serving them hair loss related content and making sure that it's coherent and these people are getting what they're coming for. Same for weight loss. There's weight loss creative, weight loss quiz, weight loss email. Same for ED and same for low T as well, for TRT and so on. And they do this for every single category on their website. Now, if you don't have the resources to do this straight away, you're launching brand, you have 20 different categories. You can just pick your hero category and focus on that. And that's what, for example, Keeps did really well. And that's a great example here. They initially focused on only one target audience, from ad to quiz to email. So you can see here, you don't have to just shave it off anymore. So they're focusing on the hair loss treatments on their side. They have the hair loss quiz, they have hair loss specific emails, and everything was just focused on the hair loss, because that's what their treatment line was. And they didn't need to, segment these more than that, because they only had the one target audience with one specific treatment plan. And that's how they were able to scale. They became the best in class and are now recognized as the largest D2C brand for men's hair loss in the United States. And obviously now, at the current scale, they have the resources and they have everything they need. So they're now expanding into more treatments like sexual health treatments, etc. Now, pattern number 3 is what winners actually do. So for example, how is HIMSS able to afford a $929 CAC and still stay profitable? Here's a couple of metrics, directional metrics from HIMSS. So you can see monthly subscription is $250, average retention is more than 24 months, patient LTV becomes, if you count it from here, more than $6,000. The CAC is super high, so it's more than $900 as well. But then with the monthly subscription value here, the payback period is almost 4 months, so they're able to go negative on a patient for pretty much 4 months. So until month 4, they're just making a loss on that patient. But they know that their retention is so high and their LTV is so high that eventually, once they get over that CAC payback period, then everything is going to be bonus, everything is going to be profit. Eventually, the 24-month ROI is 5.5x. So it's a great ROI, but they need to be able to trust that they have the retention to actually be able to afford this type of CAC. Now, obviously, this is not something that every single brand needs to go this high with CAC. You necessarily can't even compete with brand of HIMSS size. But when you're at their scale, they're pushing so much volume that they're able to go to super high CAC, but they know that the LTV is also gonna, account for that. The LTV is gonna pay back, and then eventually that's gonna make them profitable. And so the answer behind what do the winners actually do and how are they able to afford this much CAC and stay profitable, the answer here is A-tier retention marketing. The infrastructure that increases LTV by 2 to 3x. And what is this infrastructure? It's basically your email marketing, your SMS marketing, your app notifications, maybe direct mail, etc. But in this case, we're focusing mainly on email and SMS marketing, because those are the biggest ones and the most highest ROI channels. Most telehealth brands haven't set up this infrastructure properly. They either haven't spent the time, maybe they have the basic welcome flow only, they have off-the-cuff emails with no actual strategy, they're just sending something, or they've hired a traditional e-commerce agency, but that agency doesn't know anything about telehealth. They don't understand the difference of selling t-shirts to selling prescription drugs, and they're just using e-commerce strategies that destroy trust in the space. So if you're a telehealth brand, the question here is, what strategy do you need to implement? And I'm going to tell you right now a simplified version of this. So you need these flows, at least. These are the core 5 automations that bring free revenue on autopilot. So there's welcome flow, there's quiz abandonment flow, there's post-purchase flow, there's cross-sell flow, and there's win-back flow. Obviously, pop-ups are something that feed the welcome flow, so that's added in here as well. But yeah, that's pretty much the core of it. You can have more, and these also break down into like smaller pieces in many cases. But these are the core automations that if you optimize just these, you're gonna have 60 to 80% of the results. Now, I'm gonna go into detail on these, but if you're a telehealth brand doing about 50K per month, or even launching brand that needs the basic setup in place and don't have anything yet, and you want us to do the heavy lifting for you, then click the first link in the description to book a free telehealth email marketing audit with us, and I'm gonna be able to check what your current status is, how could we help you right now, and if there's potential in working together. Now, getting into the pop-up and welcome flow, this is top of funnel nurturing flow for lower intent leads who didn't start the health intake yet. So we start this flow immediately after sign up. We introduce the brand and expertise clearly. We give away the pop-up incentive if you have one. Provide education first. We don't hard sell in the same way as we would maybe in e-commerce. We still sell, but it's a little bit different compared to e-commerce. It's a little bit more value-oriented and health-oriented. We include a CTA to get your personalized plan that pushes them to the questionnaire, and then we personalize the flow based on their key goals. So for example, what's your top health goal right now? Is the pop-up on the website. If they press lose weight, they're gonna be in the segment for weight loss treatments. If they press boost vitality, they're going to be in the segment for vitality boosting treatments. And then we have the offer. Basically, we have the welcome email then where we talk about their specific goal, whether it's weight loss, whether it's vitality boosting. We're going to talk about that specific goal. We're going to introduce the offer. So for example, in this specific pop-up, we were only using a nutritionist call offer. So then also the email itself introduces welcome to Freya, and then join our next live Zoom call. Now, number 2 is questionnaire abandonment flow. And this is basically when the patient doesn't finish the questionnaire that they started. And the goal in this flow is first of all to set reminders, emphasizing the value and addressing the objections from most important one to least important one. Then linking these people back to their pre-filled questionnaire with a magic link. So basically, if they have started the intake, we want to offer a dynamic link that when they click the email, they get back to the questionnaire in the same spot where they left off from without having to start the questionnaire again. We want to include educational content or social proof, and we want to optionally offer small incentives to complete the step if they don't otherwise do it. So some sort of a discount or offer or whatever. And then in the end of the flow, if they still haven't purchased, we want to have some sort of data collection to ask them straight up, why did you not, what's holding you back? If you want any extra help, you can contact our support by pressing here or sending us an email, and we're going to be able to help you. So kind of starting this conversation to get data from them and hopefully get them to respond to our support team so we can nurture them, we can talk with them, we can figure out what hold them back, and then we can eventually convert them as well. And here's a good example of like a plain text email coming from a team member, or written as if it was coming from a team member, mentioning that they had stopped the questionnaire, offering the unique recovery link, offering some FAQs, and then having a signature at the end with the unique checkout recovery link again. Now, flow number 3 is the post-purchase onboarding flow, which triggers after the first order has been completed. With this flow, the key is to set expectations, manage side effects, educate how to get the best results from the treatment. So empower these people to make sure that they're getting the best result, and thus also staying on the treatment for longer, and also perhaps having positive word of mouth to get more people on the treatment. It should include tips, guides, FAQs, and appointment reminders. It should highlight patient success stories as inspiration for those people who are just starting. So for example, hey, see this success story from our patient who was exactly on the same spot where you were 3 months ago, and now they're here. So kind of making sure that these people are super inspired to put in the work and stay on the treatment to achieve the results that they saw somebody that was in their shoes to achieve in the past. Obviously, it can also include milestone checkups and incentives and key drop-off points. And then overall, this is like the longest and most important flow for retention. The first stage is usually just like the first couple of weeks to a month, making sure that they stay across the first refill. And then after that, it becomes, it can be up to 4 months, it can be up to the whole year with different type of milestone checkups. So for example, if somebody is dropping off on month 4 and you see that, hey, here on month 4, there's like a big drop of, let's say, retention, then we might want to set up teaser emails to the previous months here that are saying like, hey, get this type of gift when you stay with us for 1 month longer. And then we're sending these emails here before month 4. And then when month 4 arrives, most likely these people have stayed a little bit longer because they know that there was a gift coming coming, and then we deliver the gift on month 4, and then after that we might have other months in the future here where we have another gift points or milestone checkups or milestone rewards that we can then tease about them, and this way we are able to kind of gamify the journey a little bit to help people stay on the treatment for longer. So those are something that we can also implement as part of the post-purchase flow here. And like I said, sometimes this goes on for months with regular automated customer support check-ins, offering proactive help for the patients to keep them satisfied. Now there's upsell and cross-sell flows that kind of tie into the post-purchase journey as well. These are usually based on time active on treatment or predictive analytics of like, hey, right now this person is most likely to convert. The way that these work and the way that we want to set these type of flows up in telehealth is to recommend complementary treatments for the current treatment in many cases, or secondarily upsell into longer plans of the same treatment. So for example, here we could send an NAD cross-sell for people who are on weight loss treatment already, because let's say somebody who's on a GLP-1 plan might feel fatigue on the second month or on weeks 4 to 6 or something, and then we can send them a, let's say, cross-sell email about NAD plus that might help them and why our patients are choosing NAD to help them with the fatigue on, GLP-1 plan, and then we can get people to expand to that treatment as well. Or then secondly, we can do these upsells into longer plans of the same treatment. So here, for example, there's one where we are promoting a new 12-month tirzepatide plan where the price is this much, and for example, if their current monthly plan costs this much, then the new 12-month plan costs only this much per month. So we're kind of, we're mentioning here, save $65 every month if you switch to the 12-month plan. So then we increase the retention straight away. We have these people on a long-term plan, so the retention goes way up. We're not making as much margin per month, but we're most likely retaining these patients for much longer than the average retention, and thus is paying off really well and increasing our profitability. Now, there is really important for telehealth cross-sells and upsells to include personalized reasoning. So for example, at this point in whatever treatment they're on, it's normal to notice changes in whatever they notice changes in, and then here's how some patients support this phase and when it makes sense to consider additional options. And then we can link to an educational guide, for example, that introduces in the guide these complementary treatments as context, and then we might have like a hyperlink there of like NAD plus helps with fatigue based on these studies for GLP-1 patients, and then there's a CTA link to the product page of NAD, for example. So this way we can do like soft selling that is actually value driven and that is actually led by how they're feeling and how we can help them instead of just like trying to sell everything to them. Again, there's an example for the cross-sell. For GLP-1 patients, we can cross-sell NAD for, decreasing the fatigue and increasing energy. And then for GLP-1, we could, for example, upsell from monthly plan to convert to multi-month plans to increase the retention and for them as customers to save on the monthly price. Now, flow number 5 is the cancellation or win-back flows. So this one triggers when a subscription or treatment is cancelled, and this can be pretty much divided into 2 different flows. The one is basically what happens straight after they cancel. So then we have a recovery flow where we ask first of all the reason that they cancelled, and then, so for example, was the reason price or lack of results or side effects or something, and then we collect the reason, then we segment the flow. So for example, there's the reason is asked here, then we go, 1 path, 2 path, 3 path, based on different reasons. So one reason is here, one reason is here, one reason is here. And then we have the objection handling emails and emails trying to get those people to restart the treatment based on what they gave as the main reason. So that's the first part, the kind of immediate cancellation part of the flow usually. We can also offer some discount there if the reason was price, for example. And then the second part is the win-back flow, which is like for lapsed patients that have maybe already been off the treatment for a couple of months or for 45 days to 60 days to 90 days or something. And then with this flow, the goal is to mainly just get them to remember that we exist, ask them how they're feeling, ask them what's going on, remind of our value proposition, and then see if there's a potential to get them to convert back to patient. So for example, in telehealth, these are super important, these win-back flows. Why is that? It's because, let's say for GLP-1s, there's statistics that around 50% of people who are on, for example, GLP-1 plan and cancel, they come back within the first 12 months. So for example, if 50% of people are dropping off, or like 50% of those people who churn today might restart their GLP-1 treatment in the next 12 months. And if you're not the one that they restarted on, then it's going to be somebody else. So since you already have those people and they were already once your customers, you definitely want to optimize the win-back journeys so that those people would remember to come back to you when they come back eventually. So that's the most cost-efficient way to do it, because otherwise you're just losing people you already acquired once. This flow can also be built separately for like churn risk segment. So for example, for people who pause their subscription, because that's an early churn signal. So if somebody pauses a subscription, maybe we want to send a check check in, ask why did they pause, try to figure out the reason, and then try to get them to restart before we already lost them completely. And here is one example email for a specific reason of cancellation, which was that they didn't benefit from the medication. So you can see subject line here, not seeing results yet, read this, and then it speaks about specifically that objection. So this is what I mean by the segmentation based on the reason. If the reason would have been, for example, that the price was too high, then this email might be totally different, talking about some one-time offer that we can give them to get back to restart or something. Now the question is just 5 flows, and the answer to that is that, like I mentioned, all of these flows need to be custom built for every treatment you offer. So if you have 10 different treatment categories, you would basically need to build them to all of those categories. Obviously, the resources are sometimes limited, so you want to start from the ones that gather most of your traffic and then expand to the smaller ones later. But in general, one generic e-com flow is not going to cut it at all, because every treatment is its own treatment with totally different pain points, dream outcomes, and obviously totally different audience as well. That is going to be the ideal patient for that type of treatment. And most brands build them once, but never optimize, basing their whole retention strategy on guesses, just like building a flow, expecting that, hey, this flow is going to be good, but they never look at the data, so they never know if it was actually good or not, or whether they would just want to redo it with some other strategy and it would work 2 times better. For context, for most of the telehealth brands we work with, just optimizing and building these flows will end up in them having 100 plus emails and 20 plus SMS at least in their automation setup. And then there's much more to it if there's more treatment categories, if you want to build more flows, and so on. And obviously we also optimize the key flows as we gather more data, so it's a huge amount of work, even if it's just 5 high-level flows, because there's always a lot of nuances, segmentation, and everything into those flows. Then at last, the broadcast campaigns. So these ones are there to keep your customer engaged and your brand top of mind with frequent communication targeted to different segments of your audience. And for telehealth specifically, I can give you a kind of overview of how do I see different type of content pillars you can send content around. So there's problem agitation solution / like belief shifting emails. So for example, the weight wasn't your fault. There's like a before after. They explain why you have failed before in all of your tries to lose weight and why it's going to be different with us with our GLP-1 treatment, etc. Then there's simple emails that are just like really simple hero section. There's like one claim, one statistics or something, and then there's the CTA. Hims does a lot of these. There's interactive emails. So for example, they offer a link to a free calorie deficit calculator. This can be really good for prospects, but also for active patients to give them some value. Educational emails, so for example, science behind the spray, trying to explain to people why, like how does this work and why does this work, so they actually trust that the treatment works and they're more likely to get started with it. So really good content for prospects who are still on the fence of getting started. There's social proof, so you can have before afters, you can have different sorts of customer success stories, etc. Then there's treatment showcases, so for example here, cold season is here, your cells know it, and then it talks about different treatments that help your immunity and everything during the winter time, during the cold time. There's promotional emails, so here's a good example of like credit added to your account, claim your credit, use this code, etc. And then there is data collection emails, so for example, for prospects who haven't bought before, what's holding you back right now? Then we're asking them a question, they reply to this email, and then we get data on what is the reason that most of our audience is not buying right now, and then we can optimize the funnel accordingly to that. So as you can see, email and lifecycle retention marketing is much more than just sending promotions. It's just a small part of it, and there's actually a lot of other value beyond that is probably the 80-90% of the value. But the eventual value is always incremental revenue and higher retention. So that's pretty much it. And then if you're interested to watch the video below, you want to see the best telehealth retention marketing strategy in 2026, you can click the link on the screen right now or the link on this board, and I'll hope to see you on that one.